The carnival weekend has begun. And I decided to start by going to watch the play The Death of England. Um, and it's closing time I've watched, and also Delroy. Now, if you haven't seen it, it's based on racism in this country, especially right now with the riots, so-called protests that's been happening in this country. Now, in closing time, where the mother and who's black and her black son's girlfriend who's white, the white girl had a rant of racism while she was under influence, and the backlash was basically the black mother lost her patty shop because of this white girl who is supposed to be her daughter-in-law ranting racism. And then when we looked at Delroy, his version in the play, it was more about police brutality against black people, and also the fear and mistrust in the police force. Last year there was no issues really. We didn't see any fatalities versus the year before. And I remember the year before when a young man was stabbed. I remember the detective, because it happened right next to me as well, was saying that she absolutely agreed that there's a lot of racism in the Metropolitan Police Force and it needs to change. Last year, 2023, there was roughly 80 officers injured in Nothinghill Carnival. There was roughly 8 stabbings and over 300 arrests. Most of them were of color. And this year there's a fear that there is racism when it comes to arrests. The officers, they fear that they may be called racist or seen as racist. But how do we trust these officers to do their jobs? And how do we, I want to say encourage them, but how do we allow them to do their jobs? Doesn't matter if a person is black or white, because the last thing we want is someone to be stabbed, right? The last thing we want is to hear your baby has been killed in Nothinghill Carnival, and we want everyone to be safe. So I'm just hoping that this year for 2024, that leaving nights at home, all that hostility, leave it behind. This year is a good year for us to actually go to Carnival, enjoy what it's about. It's about celebrating our culture, celebrating the freedom of enslavement and against racism. And let's show these racists that, we know how to actually celebrate our culture. Our culture needs to be celebrated. And also, for those who don't like soca at Carnival, we are not asking you to play soca at your Christmas parties, at your on St. Patrick's Day, wherever. St. Patrick's Day, you expect to hear Irish music. We listen to Irish music. On Christmas Day, you want to hear carols. We listen to carols. This is Carnival, our culture. Yeah. So there will be soca, plenty soca, and trust me, you people who are saying why so much soca in Carnival and you shouldn't be playing so much soca, get your backs on the Carnival. Listen to soca, and when your hips start to move and the rhythm hit you, you understand why soca. See you down at the whole Carnival. And oh yes, we ended the night with a nice warm up in Brixton. And it was banging, jumping, And that Trinidad DJ, he knew how to drop them tunes. Jumping start, the 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 jumping start.